Hello.
How are you today?
Well, good afternoon. How are you doing today? I'm glad you're here. Today we are going to learn about Judaism, and Judaism has deep roots in the Fertile Crescent. If we learn about the Fertile Crescent, then we would know the roots of Judaism. And Fertile Crescent is an area in the Middle East which starts from Persian Gulf. This is Persian Gulf. Over here is Iran, and over here is Afghanistan, and right here is Pakistan. That's where I am from. So this is Persian Gulf, and all this area is sandy and kind of desert. But then there is an area between the two rivers of Tigris and Euphrates that is lush and green and is agricultural, and cultivation is done for the last many centuries. And from here it stretches to Haran, to Damascus, to Syria, and to the Holy Land, all the way to Egypt, even to Nubia, which is Sudan today. So this area is known as the Fertile Crescent because it shapes like a crescent. It looks like a crescent. So the two rivers of Tigris and Euphrates start somewhere in the mountains of Ararat here in Armenia somewhere, and they come down here and they fall into the Persian Gulf, and right here is the area where the greatest civilization or the first great civilization of humanity took place, which is the Sumer or Sumer or Chaldea or Babylon. These are all similar word. And Sumer is the place, right here is Sumer. It had 3-4 big cities. One of them was Ur, Uruk, and Nippur. These cities were right here in the delta where the two rivers emptied their water into the Persian Gulf, and because of the fertility, because of the nice land, human civilization started here, and the Sumerians are the one who have the credit of inventing many things. That includes the wagon wheel, the wheel that we use in the cars and in every walk of life. They invented the math. The mathematic that we are using, the Sumerians invented that. Their math was not based on number 9, it was based on number 6. And they also invented the 60-second minute. They also invented writing, cuneiform, that was invented by the Sumerians also. They also invented astrology. They invented music. They invented irrigation. So that's why this area is called the cradle of human civilization. So those people must be worshipping something or somebody. So they worshipped moon god known as Nanasin. Nanasin was the moon god, and for that little god they created huge ziggurats. For 1 second I want to take you to the picture of ziggurat and come back. This is how a ziggurat looked like. And the platform, the first level of the ziggurat, this one was 4 times the size of a football field. And then there was the second level, and then there was the third level. On that was the little shrine where Nanasin's idol was, the moon god's idol, and there was a flight of stairs from both sides, and only the king and the priest could go into this area. The rest of the people stayed on the first level, the masses and the specials, the nobles went to the second level, and only the priest and the king went to the third level, and over here was the god Moon. And this is the actual picture, and I'll show you a video clip of that in a minute. So these ziggurats were huge complexes, and hundreds and thousands of people went to the worship service, which was conducted by the king and the priest. And in 2003, when U.S. forces went into Iraq, I was watching. I was watching when the U.S. forces, right from Basra down where Ur was, they came from Kuwait. Let me take it back for a second. The Kuwait is over here, so from Kuwait they entered to Iraq right here, and right here is Basra, the latest or new city near Ur of Chaldea, where Father Abraham lived. And I just bursted into tears because it was actual, it was real that Father Abraham lived in that area, and the U.S. forces were walking by that ziggurat. So for 2 minutes and 21 seconds, I want to play the video of Sumer. Today I have 3-4 clips, and I want us to watch those clips. So there you go.
We find the first of almost everything that makes us civilized.
Is it real?
They invented the wheel. In Sumer, government. We find the first of almost everything that makes us civilized. Sumer. They invented the wheel, civilization, government on Earth. In a land without stone, they devised mud bricks, like those still made and used today. And from these simple building blocks, they erected the first great monuments called ziggurats, towering temples soaring hundreds of feet into the air. The Sumerians invented the 60-second minute and even the troubled teenager.
Where did you go?
I didn't go anywhere.
If you didn't go anywhere, why do you idle about? Go to school, stand before your teacher, recite your homework, write your tablet. Do you understand me?
We know about the Sumerians, their startling innovations, and their everyday lives, thanks to their most impressive invention, writing. We know their ancient legends and their intimate secrets because someone wrote them down. It was something no one had ever done before.
It's a window, but it's a window that's composed of many panes, some of which we can see through and some of which we can't. We lack much more than we have. So while what we have is spectacular in some cases, we always have to bear in mind that there are parts of the daily lives of people that we can never see and which we may never see because they're people that those writing the tablets didn't care about.
5,000 years ago, someone etched their stories into clay, providing us with a glimpse of the world in the first blush of civilization.
As a people, the Sumerians were in some ways much like ourselves. They are concerned about meeting other people and drinking beer and so on. And there are several collections of poems which relate the preparations of a woman for her lover and how she dresses and waits for her lover to come.
The center of Sumerian civilization was the lost city of Ur, once thought to be the birthplace of Abraham, first of the Bible's patriarchs.
So there is Sumer, and there was the ziggurat and the ruins of the city of Ur, where Father Abraham was from. So, thank you. And you might think, why did I mention about U.S. forces going into passing through going through Basra and going into Iraq? The reason behind that is, and one of the reasons that U.S. forces attacked Iraq is that Saddam Hussein saw himself as the second Nebuchadnezzar. He thought of himself the one who was going to revive Iraq, the one who was going to make Iraq the greatest power on the earth as it was in the 6th century BC during the time of Nebuchadnezzar. So here is a video clip. Would you like to watch or should I continue? And he reconstructed the palace of Nebuchadnezzar. And he, like Nebuchadnezzar, had inscriptions on the walls of his palace. Saddam Hussein also had inscriptions on the bricks that he used for his palace. So if he was alive today, maybe he would have done a lot of damage to the world.
President Saddam is one who does. Indeed, for the president of modern-day Iraq, ancient Babylon has more than mere historical significance. This is the southern palace of King Nebuchadnezzar. In the 6th century BC, he was the Middle East's top dog.
And this is the throne room of King Nebuchadnezzar, the ruler of the greatest empire the world had known until this time. And he made sure that everyone did know about it too.
And you can see some inscription from the time of Nebuchadnezzar, still as it is. The translate of this inscription, "I'm Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the world. Reconstruct this building to my family and to my God. I hope to help me in the lower life," that's mean in the date life. They like to put his stamp on all the bricks there in Babylon.
The palace was rebuilt by President Saddam. He sees Nebuchadnezzar as the first Iraqi revolutionary and a man to emulate.
It says, in the era of President Saddam Hussein, all Babylon was reconstructed in 3 stages. From Nebuchadnezzar to Saddam Hussein, Babylon is rising again.
In the Bible, it was Babylon the whore, destroyed by its enemies and on God's order never to be rebuilt. But Iraq insists its history has been falsified and that it's had a bad press ever since.
It begins from the Genesis and the story of the Tower of Babylon.
Uh-oh, I'm sorry.
Babylon itself. I received letters from people all over the world telling me, why you are restoring Babylon again? Why you are doing this and that? Don't you know this is violating again the order of the God? This is not my God. This is the God of the Jewish people.
But the real history of Babylon remains in doubt, particularly the Hanging Gardens. Not so much hanging gardens, so the theory goes, as gardens stepped up into the sky and irrigated by water pumped from the Euphrates River.
And we didn't receive any inscription, any confirmed inscription from the old Babylonian time about the hanging gods.
But the Tower of Babel certainly did. To historians, it was a structure of enormous height. In the Bible, a symbol of human arrogance. It looks nothing like that today, just a big hole in the ground, surrounded by a moat. The palace on the hill is interesting, though. Although money for the archaeology dried up years ago, funding was found for modern palaces like this, because they fit the dream of modern-day greatness. These days, that's an illusion. Today, the Nebuchadnezzar Museum is locked and empty, for Iraq is experiencing a wave of robberies. Trying to survive, people sell anything they have. On top of that, some have turned to theft, stealing priceless artifacts from ancient sites. The Iraqi government blames this on the UN sanctions, which it says not only drive Iraqis to commit these crimes, but actually obstruct the efforts to recover them.
It is also a kind of violation to the embargo itself, because these countries who are really forbidding us from getting the medicine and food for our people, are at the same time allowing the traders and smugglers to transfer all our objects to them.
To the Iraqi government, Babylon's a cult, a symbol of Iraqi greatness, towering above the weakness and the decadence of the modern Arab world, just as ancient Babylon towered above the ancient world.
So maybe
Wabi's days are empty ones. His life's work is at a standstill.
Babylon does not belong to the Iraqi, just the Iraqi, the whole world, because it gives the first civilization in the world, of course. The civilization is not for Iraqi, for all people in all the world.
Well, that was the land, the walled city, the most modern place on the face of the earth where Father Abraham lived. And Bible tells us in Genesis 12, 1 through 4, that God called him from that most civilized place to leave his family, his kith and kin, everybody, and move to the land that was going to be given to him and to his descendants as a gift, which is known as a promised land. And we know from the Bible also that Abraham's father, Terah or Tare is the pronunciation, Tare and his three sons, Nahor and Haran and Abraham lived there. And Abraham's father, Tare, was an idol worshipper as the people of the land. And in the Jewish tradition, there is a story that one day Tare had to go to take care of, to run some errands, and he let Abraham in charge of the idol shop. So while he was, taking care of the idols, a customer came, and Abraham did not sell any idols, rather broke most of the idols. And later a female came, a woman came, and she brought the libations or gifts, sacrifices for those idols. And Abraham threw away the fruits and everything and broke the idols, and just left the biggest idol standing. So when his father came back, he said, "Oh, what happened to the idols?" He said, "Well, they had a fight among themselves, who is the greatest. So the greatest one beat up the smaller ones, and he is the only one remaining, standing." So his father said, "How can that be?" So Abraham said, "Exactly. If those idols could not protect themselves, how can they be gods? So you are to be worshiping one true God, Almighty Creator of heaven and earth." And this is the greatest contribution of the Jews to humanity, the concept of one true God, Creator of human and everything else in the world. And also Bible talks about the land of Shinar and Babylon. We just saw the video about Babylon. And from there, Abraham left, and he started his journey toward the promised land. Here again is the Persian Gulf. Here are the Tigris and Euphrates rivers falling into the Persian Gulf. Here is Ur, and all this area is Sumer. And he started his journey, and he came from all these places, Nuzi and other places, and came all the way and settled in Haran. And he lived there for some time along with his father, we know from the biblical accounts. And he also purchased Eliezer from there, who became the second in power after him. From there he came to Syria, and from Syria he came to the promised land and pitched his tent between Ai and Bethel, and he was living under the oaks of Mamre right here when the great thing of expulsion of Hagar and Ishmael took place, and they came over here and they started living here, which is Medina. And this is the Sinai Peninsula, and this is Egypt, and this is River Nile. Over here is Sudan, which is Nubia. And while I'm at it, I'm going to give you another piece of information that you might have not heard before. But the Bible says that God planted a garden, named it Eden, and 4 rivers used to water it. So my research and my study is that the Garden of Eden was here somewhere, right here. Because 2 rivers are over here coming, Euphrates and Tigris, and the other 2 have been just dried up, and the scanner, the Stellar and other planes have discovered their riverbeds under the sand over here. So anyway, Father Abraham left his family, his civilized country, walled city where he had everything. He lived in a brick house, and he traveled all the way, and he came and he lived in the tents. And in Genesis 10, we find out that there were many, many nations living over here. The Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Hivites, and you name it. And one of them were the Jebusites, who lived in the city of Salem. Salem is now called Jerusalem. So in the ancient time, when Abraham had just gotten into the land, the king of Salem, Melchizedek, Melech is king, Zedek was his name, and which means righteous. King of Salem came and he blessed Father Abraham, and Abraham in return gave him tithing of everything that he had looted from defeating the 5 victorious kings. And in Genesis 35, 23 to 26, we have the names of the 12 sons of Father Abraham, and then he became, I'm going to rush through the history part so we can move forward. So they became a great nation, and they had kings as mighty as David and Solomon. And in 597 BC, king of Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar, invaded Jerusalem, and he invaded the Holy Land, and he took the people into exile. So the king paid tribute for 10 years and stopped around year 585. So in 586 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar came back with a huge army, and it was a very humiliating defeat, and he destroyed the temple, and he took everybody into exile and took them to the Babylonian area and planted them there. And by the way, that was the time when prophet, one of the greatest prophet, Jeremiah, was alive. And one of the psalms that the Jews wrote during the exile period by the rivers of Kebar, by the rivers of Babylon, there we hung up our harps on the willow trees, and we wept when we remembered Jerusalem. That just breaks my heart every time I recite that. That's why I put it there. It's a very, very powerful psalm, and it shows the pain and agony of the Jewish people losing their homeland and going into exile. And then King Darius allowed them to come back, but then again the second biggest exile or destruction of Jerusalem took place during Roman General Titus in 70 AD. In 70 AD, the Jews went into diaspora for a long time. For about 2,000 years, the Jewish people lost their homeland, and they went into Europe, they went to Russia, they went to Asia, they went to Africa. I'll talk more about that. And in 1895, the Jews who were Zionists, they got together in London, and they had their first meeting over there about establishing the state of Israel. And in June 1897, they met again. The first Jewish Congress met in Basel, the city of Basel in Switzerland. and they decided, yes, the dream is going to come true and we are going to establish our state. And they adopted the flag, they adopted the national anthem, and from that point on, they just struggled to have their homeland. And in 1948, on June 6, a Jewish state was established. And from day one, the Jews have been having wars with Arabs. They have been having hostility because the Arabs did not like the idea of establishing a Jewish state, because they were living there for those 2,000 years. And from 1920 till 1948, the Holy Land was under control of the British. And during the World War, the Arabs were hostile to the Jews, and they really did not want the Jewish state come into existence, and they allied with Hitler, and they even favored him, and Hitler created a whole battalion of the Turk and Muslims to destroy the Jews. And Six-Day War of 1967 was the war that was decisive. The Jewish armies destroyed the Arabian Air Force while they were in hangars. They completely destroyed their air forces, Egyptian, Syrian, etc., etc. And they conquered the whole area. And one thing that happened was very, very special, that Menahem Begum and the others took control of Dome of the Rock. And for 1 month, they had control over not only Old City of Jerusalem and Dome of the Rock, and they were planning to do something drastic. But the Prime Minister said, well, it would cause so much bloodshed, so let's just give it back to the Muslims and wait for the appropriate time to regain it. So here is another clip that we are going to watch.
This is fun, isn't it? So much better than last year.
Everyone deserves a better vacation.
Here's just a video about Jerusalem. All right, some of the holy books. Mishnah is the canonized Torah, which was canonized compiled around 200 AD, and part of that is called Gemara, which is the interpretation and elaboration of the Mishnah, which was compiled 300 years later, around 500. Then there is Talmud. Talmud has two versions. One is Jerusalemi from Jerusalem, and one from Babylon. So the Talmud Jerusalemi was compiled around 350 to 400 AD, and the Talmud Babylonian was compiled around 500 AD. When the Jewish people were in exile in Babylon or Iraq, that's the time when most of the Jewish literature was compiled and collected and put to order, put to writing. And because the temple was destroyed and there was not sacrificial worship going on, and the interpretation of the law was becoming an issue because many teachers of the law were martyred during that time. So the elders would get together and they would discuss the law and they would interpret it, and then they compiled out those discussions, and that book is called Halakha. And then Tanakh is the Jewish Bible, which is the compilation of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and the prophets and the writings. And there is a video clip of Wailing Wall, the worship at the Wailing Wall. Would you like, or can I skip? Or we can watch. It's very powerful. It's a short one. Some of the high holy days we are going to talk about. First of all, that worship is very important in Judaism, and there used to be 3 prayers during the day, but then they turned into 13 blessings, and just like Christian worship, there is singing, there is a sermon, there is a portion of the reading of the scriptures, and it's a very holy and sacred thing. And we just observed, saw, the Jewish community observing Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is the new year of Judaism or Jewish calendar, and that's the day when the Jewish belief says that the books of life or the book of life is opened, and people are given a 10-day period, a window to repent from their sins, and God would forgive any sins if people ask for forgiveness and repentance during that day. And Yom Kippur is the day of the atonement, when the sins would be forgiven and the names of the people, forgiven people, would be written in the book of life. Passover, as we know, is the very, very holy, very sacred, very ancient festival or a holy day. It was ordained during the Egyptian bondage, as we remember the story that God passed over Egypt that night and ordained the festival of Passover. But it basically is a spring festival, and is observed during the month of Nisan. Let me see if we can cover the rest of the things, and then if we have time, we will watch the clips again. When people went into diaspora, they went all over the world. They went all over the world, especially 70 AD when General Titus destroyed the temple and people scattered. So there are many kinds of Jews, or many variations of Jewish belief, ethnically and spiritually or religiously. Ashkenaz is the word used in Bible for Germany. So Ashkenazi Jews are the one who lived in Germany and in France and in Eastern Europe. Sephardic word is Sephard is used for Spain, and those are the Jews living in Spain and Portugal and the other country. Mizrahi is the word used for East, which means the people living in Middle East. The people, Jews living in the Middle East are called Mizrahi Jews. Flasha Jews attract me a lot. They are the African or Ethiopian Jews. A friend of mine went in search of Ark of Covenant, and he met with those Flasha Jews. They are black, they are African. And the tradition is when Queen of Sheba came to see King Solomon, and she stayed with King Solomon, and this is the tradition. And they had a son. So when King Solomon died, he went back to Ethiopia. That's the Ethiopian story of Queen of Sheba. And he took back the Ark of Covenant with him, and also, his servants, his people went with him, and they started living in Ethiopia. And I think there are about maybe 3,500 or so many Jews, Flasha Jews left. Their DNA was checked, and that proved that they are real Jews. They are not making it up. Then Yemenite, down at the bottom of Saudi Arabia, Jews have been living there for a long time. Then the Asian Jews living in Asia. Then religiously, rabbinical Jews from the time of Solomon onward, those who offer the sacrifices. And the Karaites are the one who said, we don't like this, and we would like to create our own tradition. This word, next word is Hasidic. Hasidic Jews are kind of Orthodox Jews, and they are the one who believed in the mystic form of Judaism. Mitnagdim are the one who believed in Kabbalah, and they used Kabbalah for their religious spirituality. Orthodox, as the word says, they are the one who believe in the orthodoxy of the scriptures, and they believe that Torah is divinely originated, given to God, given to Moses by God himself. And the Reformed are the one who do not believe in the divine origin of the Torah. Most of them live in the United States. And more modern form of the Reformed is the Reconstructionists. They mostly live here in America. One thing I want to make clear is when we are talking about beliefs, that we normally put O, vowel O between G and D, but in Jewish communities, there is no vowel O used. It's God. God, however you pronounce it, God exists and is eternal and is incorporeal, which means that he does not have any son, does not share with anybody, and he is from eternity and will be eternal always. And another belief is, common belief is that Moses is the greatest of all prophets, and all the prophecies that Moses prophesied are true, and God gave oral Torah and written Torah to Moses, which he passed on to Joshua and to the elders, and is coming down from that point on. The Jews also believe that Messiah will come. The Christians believe Messiah came in the form of Jesus Christ, but Jews don't believe that. And also, the Jews believe in the resurrection of the dead and the day of judgment. I like to do 3 parts of every lecture, on the historical part, and then the religious part, and then the cultural part, and then how to minister to those people, or how to take care of the patients who are Jewish or any religious entity. So like every other community, the Jewish community also has a very, very strong and very old culture, which highlights literature, poetry, music, Jewish wedding, and bar mitzvah, and funeral, and so many other things. I just want to say that the Jews know how to write. The 5 first books of Torah, especially the book of Genesis, is so powerful writing. I mean, they might have not done so much construction in the past. They lived in the tent. They were homeless for 2,000 years or so. But they knew how to write literature. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Just the first line of Bereshit is so powerful. And they have been writing, most of the articles were written in poetry. And then there are poetry books in the Bible, in the Tanakh. And there are at least 13 Nobel Prize laureate, Nobel laureate, who are Jews from all over the world, And then, of course, Jewish music is very powerful. And Jewish wedding is a very special wedding. And according to Jewish faith, the wedding is between man and woman, and it's instituted by God himself in the Garden of Eden. And when a male is turned 13, he is given the right of becoming an adult and included in the society as an adult. So that right is called bar mitzvah. And then, of course, the Jewish people believe in burying the dead body, and there is a funeral for that. How to minister to Jewish people? Because we are in the medical area, medical center. So first of all is that we all know that the Jewish people do not eat any food. They are very particular about eating the kosher food. And it would be good if they are not forced or not given food which is not kosher. They have issues with the blood, so do not transfuse any blood to them before asking if they would allow you to do them. You need to ask them which community, religious community do you belong to, and it would be wise to contact that synagogue or that Jewish community and ask them to come and visit that person. In case of a death, a patient dies, it's very important that you follow the Jewish rites, because the Jews like to handle the body themselves or by Jewish people, especially if it is a male. The male would give the bath to the body, and if it's a female, the females would give bath to the body. They like to bury the body as soon as possible. Also, make sure that you do not remove the tubes and the hookups and all that, because the Jewish community does not believe in losing any blood or embalming. So be very careful and inform the community as soon as possible, because the Jewish body are to be removed in a particular way, and there is no autopsy most of the time. They do not like any autopsy. All right. We have about 10 minutes, and I will try to answer any questions if I can. Just 1 second. Let me put the first slide on. Yes, sir. We'll do the other mic.
On the books that you mentioned, you listed the last one as the not the not 5 scriptures. Okay, on the list of books, you listed the Tanakh as the last one, being the 5 books of Moses, also called the Old Testament as well as the Holy Scriptures, which we call it, should be the main one on top, because all of the commentaries, the Talmud, Mishnah, Gemara, etc., were all based on passages in the Tanakh, which of course is considered the words of God and so forth and so on. So I just want to clarify that. The other thing is Moses brought down the written law, which is the Tanakh, the 5 books of Moses, but the oral law he did not bring down. Commentaries.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
One important decision made at the beginning of the existence of Israel was to use the Hebrew language. Very important commitment.
And that is that's a very special thing that when the state of Israel was established, they decided to use the Hebrew language, because had they not, like Aramaic, it might have been a dead language by now. But because they decided to use the language, we have more than 13 Nobel laureate.
It's interesting that in the culture, historically, science was very minor interest for Jewish people until Enlightenment.
Right.